Welcome to Sonoma County's Town Hall on Climate Action and Resiliency, Steps to Become Carbon Neutral by 2030. Julie Burns has a special message for us on our Spanish-speaking guest tonight.
Muy buenas noches y bienvenidos a la reunión pública virtual de acción y resiliencia climática. Esta reunión pública se está transmitiendo en vivo en nuestro canal de YouTube con interpretación al español. Para escuchar la versión en español, puede usar el enlace de YouTube que se encuentra en la página de Facebook del Condado de Sonoma. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Julie. And before we get started, I just want to mention that we will be ending at 7 o'clock this evening. We just had so many speakers. We've got 19 speakers today, as well as all of your public comment. So we really wanted to make sure we had enough time. So please stay with us until 7 o'clock. And I'd like to welcome Linda Hopkins and Susan Gorin tonight. Supervisor Gorin, want to start?
Thank you so much, and enormous thank yous to BJ Bischoff, Jane Elias, Crystal, Carrie Harrow, and our amazing staff members who have helped us to put this together. Also need to recognize, of course, my co-chair, Chair Linda Hopkins, for helping to organize this tonight. And I do believe that we are joined tonight by some, if not all of the rest of our board members, Supervisor David Rabbit, Supervisor James Gore, and Supervisor Chris Coursey. We are so excited about being here tonight. It's been a long time coming. Many of you remember that I focused my State of the County message last January on the climate emergency that we were experiencing and pledged to focus my year as chair working with Supervisor Hopkins and others, many of you in the community and our government partners, on addressing exactly where we need to go and what kind of action steps we need to take. And as we know, COVID became an emergency almost overnight, and the county shut down, and we were forced to put all of our conversations and the action steps on the back burner while we address the very serious public health challenges. And we're finding now that we're vaccinating enormous number of folks in the community, and those folks, maybe some of you are with us tonight, are ready to once again move forward on the very essential steps that we need to take in the near future, as well as for the long-term future of Sonoma County. Thank you for being with us tonight. And we are so glad to have you here with us. We have a very exciting panel of discussion leaders giving little TED Talks, both from the community, our community-based organizations, as well as our great government partners. And BJ will introduce them all later, but I believe a special thank you goes to my co-chair, Linda Hopkins.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Gorin. And I just want to acknowledge all of the work of staff and also the work that you have put into this. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that right now we are in a climate crisis. Our planet is on fire, our county is on fire, and we're not just on fire. We're also in flood, in drought, with rising seas and sinking groundwater. And of course, as Supervisor Gorin mentioned, in the midst of a pandemic. What we know for certain is that all of these things, fire, flood, drought, sea level rise, zoonotic diseases, will only get worse from here on out. Impacts that we didn't expect for another 10, 20, 30 years are happening today. And what we know is that we're out of time and it's past time for change. The other thing that's clear is that what we're doing is not working. We're not moving with a sense of urgency. The traditional lines between government and activists, between environmentalists and social justice activists, the silos that exist within and between government itself, they're no longer serving us. And that's why I'm so excited for this town hall tonight and for the next steps that we take from here. There are good, smart, kind, hardworking people across our county working to address climate change. And we're going to hear from some of them this evening. The entire Board of Supervisors is also here to listen to the presentations. And I really believe that if we are all rowing in the same direction, activists, government, businesses, nonprofits, we can make progress. So without further ado, let's all come together and start rowing in the same direction.
Thank you so much. Let me tell you about the organizations that you're going to hear from tonight. You're going to hear, we've got a PowerPoint here, and Jane is going to help me with that. So let's go to that slide right there. We have a list here of the different organizations you're going to hear from that are county departments, special districts, and we've got one utility here. We've got Sonoma Water, Ag and Open Space. We've got the Regional Climate Protection Authority, SoCo Transportation Authority, Permit Sonoma, Ucce Cooperative Education, Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District, Sonoma Clean Power, and Zero Waste Sonoma. We also have 10 community partners with us today. We have the Climate Center, Daily Acts, Sunrise Movement, Sonoma County Conservation Action, Congress, Carbon Cycle Institute, Sonoma County Climate Mobilization. We have Sierra Club, we have Sonoma Ecology Center, and North Bay Jobs with Justice, all presenting for you tonight. So let me tell you a little bit about the team that's going to be here to pull all this together and to work with you this evening. I'm BJ Bischoff, and my co-facilitator is Sarah Sturck. So go ahead and wave like that when
everybody.
When we mention your name. Thanks, Sarah. And we're independent facilitators helping to manage this town hall. And our job today is to introduce the presenters, facilitate your comments, and make sure that we stay on track. And I want to introduce the folks that are helping out today, in addition to Sarah and me. We have Crystal Carajero and Maggie Fleming, and they're going to be monitoring Facebook. And if you're watching the PowerPoint, you can see all their official titles with the county. Jane Elias is going to be managing our PowerPoint presentation, and she's been great as far as contacting all of our presenters and working really, really hard to get everything together tonight. Thank you for that special help, Jane. Lois Hopkins is monitoring our email. We have access, you have access to us in addition to Zoom through email at climate@sonoma-county.org, and you'll see that on the screen in just a little bit. Terry Wright is going to keep us on time. She's the one using our clock today and letting us know how we're doing. And Inez is going to be monitoring our Spanish channel. And Julie Burns and Danielle Tamayo are going to provide our Spanish interpretation. And Ross Walters from our county IT department is going to serve as our technical director. So it's a cast of thousands behind the scene helping to make all this happen for you today. Just want to mention again that email, and you'll notice in your chat also, we'll talk about that in just a minute, information that we have for you live is going to appear in your chat. So make sure you open up your chat if you can do that. So let's talk about the procedures for tonight. We're going to have about 2 or 3 presentations that you're going to hear. And then we're going to stop and ask for your comments based on what you just heard. And we're going to ask you to type them into the Q&A feature of Zoom, or if you're just calling in, email us, and I'll explain that in just a little bit. But we want you to tell us what you think are the most important actions that the County of Sonoma can take to ensure that the county becomes carbon neutral by the year 2030. So we want you to type your comments into the Q&A feature of Zoom in English or Spanish. It doesn't matter. We want you to post comments and not questions, because we're looking for your opinions during this town hall. If you have any questions for any of our speakers, please contact them directly after the town hall. And Sarah's going to post every website for every organization that's speaking in the chat to make it easy for you. So you can just go click right on there, and then you can copy that and contact them afterward. We want to also let you know that we've deactivated the thumbs up feature in the Q&A to help us facilitate your comments better. When you have the thumbs up feature, things go flying up to the top, and it's hard for Sarah and I to track what you're saying. Also, if you like someone's comment, just go ahead and reply to that comment that you agree or disagree with it. And you can also post on Facebook. We also want to let you know we've got about 300 people with us tonight. So that is great to have so many people in the community with us. Again, for those of you calling in by phone, please go ahead and email us at climate@sonoma-county.org. And we've already received many emails already that we will be incorporating into your comments when we summarize all of this. We want to let you know that today's session is being recorded, and we want you to know that Sarah and I will personally summarize your comments and present them in a report to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors for their future climate action planning work. So that's a little bit about what's in store tonight. I see a lot of you are already posting in the Q&A. We really appreciate that. Someone's saying that their chat is disabled, and Ross, I just want to see if you can do anything about that. So just wanted to, I'll mention some technical things as they occur. Reminders, use the Q&A feature, Facebook and email to submit your comments during the presentation. Please use respectful language and refrain from using swear words, because a lot of us are at home and there are a lot of children that could be present. So be careful, please. And please refrain from personal attacks on other attendees and each other. So really appreciate if you would do that. So we're going to get started, and we're going to get started with Sonoma Water, and we want to welcome Ann Krelock. Ann.
Hi, just a sound check. BJ, can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for including us in this very, very big and very important conversation. For Sonoma Water, climate change presents major challenges because the science shows that we need to plan for more droughts, more floods, and more fires, and we're committed to doing just that. One of the most important things that we all can do is to reduce our own contributions to climate change, because supplying drinking water and treating wastewater are very energy intensive activities. This was particularly important for Sonoma Water to do. So in 2006, per our board's direction, we created a program called Carbon-Free Water as part of our board adopted energy policy. Under this program, we worked to make our water and wastewater systems more energy efficient, so they required less electricity to run. Then we implemented 4 big photovoltaic projects and cost effectively began contracting for renewable, non-fossil fuel-based electricity. This includes using Sonoma Clean Power's Evergreen program, hydropower from Lake Sonoma's Warm Spring Dam, hydropower in the Sierra Nevada region, and large solar projects in Central California. And we're very proud to say that we reduced our greenhouse gas emissions from electricity down to almost zero and achieved carbon-free water in 2015. We're also working to adapt our climate to our changing climate and are drafting a climate adaptation plan. This plan will help us tackle these challenges in a thoughtful, systematic, and efficient way. For example, this plan includes continued partnerships with science-based organizations such as the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography to study atmospheric rivers, which provide 30 to 50% of California's annual precipitation and cause around 90% of its floods. Using this information, we've developed and continue to improve decision-making tools such as Forecast-Informed Reservoir Operations, or FIRO for short. This tool is already helping those who manage reservoir releases more accurately track, monitor, and respond to major storm events. Sonoma Water has been working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to use this tool to improve operation of Lake Mendocino and retain more water in the lake whenever possible while still minimizing flood risks. We're also working to adapt to increased fire threat through programs such as Fire Smart Lima. Lake Sonoma is a critical source of drinking water for the region, but it's fire. We've worked with landowners and agencies and organizations in and around the watershed to find ways to work together to reduce risk. Additionally, we're working with several partners, including Ucce Cooperative Extension, the Conservation Biology Institute, Pepperwood, Tuckman Geospatial, Ag Innovations, and Permit Sonoma on a transparent science-based tool to help identify locations for multi-benefit vegetation management projects and help support the great work that Permit Sonoma is doing for its Community Wildfire Protection Plan update. So in short, we're facing unprecedented challenges, but we're extremely fortunate in this county to have so many knowledgeable and capable partners ready to face it with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's your turn to tell us how you feel about what we just said. So I'm sorry, we're gonna go to one more. Then you're gonna tell us. You've already been telling us through the comments. I'm just so anxious to talk about those. Carol Hart from Ag and Open Space. Why don't you share with us a little bit about what you guys are doing to get us to carbon neutral by 2030?
Well, thank you so much. I just am so grateful to the board and all of the staff for putting this town hall out and making it available to everyone. And I'm very pleased to have an opportunity to discuss the critical role that Ag and Open Space has played since its enacting measure was adopted by Sonoma County voters over 30 years ago in 1990. Conserving land plays a critical role in slowing and adapting to climate change and its primary effects, including significant loss of biodiversity. And the importance of that work was highlighted by the governor in his recent executive order to conserve 30% of California's lands by 2030 to help protect species that are threatened by climate change and development. And Ag and Open Space is at the forefront of this kind of work. We've now protected in fee and through conservation easements over 122,000 acres of land here in Sonoma County. And I want to highlight in a few minutes that I have here today why that work matters so much and how the district will be an integral part of achieving carbon neutrality here in Sonoma County by 2030. In addition to the carbon sequestration role that's played by district protected lands that I'm going to focus on here this evening, its actions prevent widespread subdivision and development in far-flung areas. And this helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by limiting car trips to and from urban centers. We also work closely with our agricultural partners to institute climate-friendly regenerative ag. And that's something that we're really looking forward to increasing going forward. So it's hard, I think, for people to realize just how important protected forests and woodlands, grasslands, wetlands, marshes, and agricultural lands are, because they sequester and store carbon, and that literally sucks it out of the atmosphere. The county's publicly and privately owned forests, for example, and grasslands can sequester and store a tremendous amount of carbon, and they have a significant potential to do even more. Just to give you an example, on a national scale, the US Forest Service reports that the nation's forests and forest products offset nearly 16% of domestic carbon dioxide emissions by storing 866 million metric tons of carbon dioxide per year, which is equivalent to the annual emissions from 50 million gas or diesel fueled vehicles. And this is because forests absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and they store it in carbon pools that are not just the trees, but also the soil and all of the fungus that lives there, the undergrowth, the floor of the forest. But when a carbon pool like this decomposes or is burned, it releases carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. And that's caused also by invasive insects and diseases, drought, which result in wildfires, which of course is a huge issue for us here in Sonoma County, and urban development. And all of these things are compounded with a changing climate, so that we see the amount of forest land is severely impacted and the rate of carbon sequestration and storage that we can accomplish is impacted. And that's why Ag and Open Space has taken a leading role in addressing vegetation management in the county, beginning with the 2 to 4 million that the board has just allocated from the PG&E settlement to be spent in the coming months to help reduce fire risk in the county. We're going to be working with our state representatives as well to obtain additional funding for this pool for this coming fire season. And on top of this, PG&E settlement funds will go toward workforce development to build our labor pool to address vegetation management, community outreach, governance, coordination, and really importantly, leveraging the existing funds that we have. In addition, as you'll hear, and was just mentioned by Ann, the county has helped to advance initiatives on data mapping and planning efforts with partners inside and outside of the county. Now, on the climate adaptation side of things, Ag and Open Space purposefully protects lands that are diverse in elevation, habitat types, plant communities, microclimates, and more to make sure that both people and wildlife have room for migration and to adapt in the face of rising sea levels, warming temperatures, and other environmental changes. Protected undeveloped land enhances resiliency, not just through carbon sequestration, by protecting and enhancing ecosystem services, like the quality and quantity of clean water, air quality, protection of watersheds, riparian areas, coastal areas. And outdoor recreation is often not linked to climate change, but it's absolutely essential because people need a place to get out when because we're asking people to live in more dense locations in the cities. We need outdoor recreation, which the district and its park partners provide access to the rivers, the coast, and forested cool hiking areas. Many of our regional and state parks have been purchased by the Open Space District and its partners and turned over to regional and state parks. So as we look forward to the inevitably increasing impacts of climate change, Ag and Open Space is going to be working with all of the stakeholders and partners that you see here today that are going to be speaking today to accomplish the goals that I've discussed here. We operate in an open and transparent way. We have many meetings each month. They're all now on Zoom, and we would love for you to log in. And we want to work together to show the benefits of this visionary revenue measure that is supported so strongly by our residents. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Carol. We appreciate that. And now we want to hear from you. I know a lot of you have been already typing in your comments. And Terry, we're going to spend just 2 minutes looking at these, and then we'll go into some other presentations. Please go ahead and type your comments into the Q&A or email us at climate@sonoma-county.org. Go ahead and post on Facebook. Don't worry about spelling, typing complete sentences, doesn't matter. Sarah, what are you seeing coming in from?
Well, also, I'd love to give a tip. If you have a really long comment or suggestion, one that's a little more at length, I'm seeing some really long, wonderful ideas and thoughts. Please consider emailing those to us tonight, just because we want to make sure we have room for everybody's comments here. And sometimes the longer ones can take up a little bit more time. So, especially with so many participants. But let's take a look. We had a lot of folks already kind of jumping into the conversation upon logging in. Marilyn asks the supervisors, how do you justify expanding cannabis cultivation with drought and climate chaos? Thank you, Marilyn, for your comment. From John Nagel, he suggests soil management and reforesting as some of our focuses with this plan. Mark asks, what will be the next steps for evaluating and implementing these actions, policies, and recommendations that come from tonight and in the next 2 weeks? Looks like we've got some folks who've already responded to those, and we appreciate that. What else do you see in there, BJ? We've got a lot.
Well, Sonoma County should consider carbon farming and use compost to help facilitate this. And you'll hear a little bit about that from one of our speakers later tonight. I'm glad to see that. Anything else? What are you seeing, Sarah?
Kaylin Notch suggests investing more in public transportation, and we have a lot of people who are agreeing with Kaylin on that suggestion. Kirpa Gurwal suggests building resiliency within the community, design of natural systems. Thank you for that suggestion. Andrea Seifert says subsidies of our county tax breaks for good soil management, native tree planting, and better and more efficient public transit. Thank you. These are the kinds of ideas and suggestions we are looking for tonight. So keep them coming.
Keep them coming. And we're going to introduce our next speaker, and still go ahead and feel free to put those comments, and we're going to look at every one of those tomorrow. So go ahead and start typing now if you want. We're going to now hear from Tanya Nareth from the Regional Climate Protection Authority, also known as RCPA. And I think a lot of you may know about that organization. Tanya.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for joining us. I'd like to start with a brief background on the RCPA. We lead a local government coalition to mobilize regional climate action in Sonoma County. We're a special district governed by a 12-member board of directors comprised of representatives from the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors and council members from each of the 9 municipalities. We provide a forum for local elected officials and local and regional entities to discuss a wide range of topics related to climate change and resiliency. The Sonoma Climate Mobilization Strategy is our newest initiative. The strategy sets a bold goal of Sonoma County being carbon neutral by 2030. To achieve this, we must reduce our greenhouse gas pollution by at least 80% by 2030 and store any remaining carbon in our plants and soils. The strategy defines 13 countywide strategies that local government has the authority to implement. The strategies focus on eliminating the burning of oil and gas to power our buildings and transportation, increasing the amount of carbon stored in our plants and soils, and expanding our community resilience to floods, wildfires, extreme heat, and other climate risks. Our board has prioritized several of these strategies for RCPA to work on over the next 12 to 18 months. A Drive Less Sonoma County campaign to make it easier to get around without a car. An electric vehicle access for all partnership to increase the accessibility and affordability of electric vehicles. Supporting our local agricultural producers to increase carbon sequestration. Developing effective community outreach and education campaigns about the climate strategy, and working with our local jurisdictions to integrate equity and climate into all local policies. The Sonoma Climate Mobilization Strategy is a living document intended to guide countywide climate action between now and 2030. We will regularly measure and report our progress and revise the strategy as needed. Water Upgrade Save is a new regional water efficiency program managed by the RCPA. The city of Sebastopol is the first utility in Sonoma County to join the program, and we are in conversation with several other cities that have expressed interest. This program will enable participating municipal water utilities to offer customers a simple path to install water efficiency upgrades with no upfront cost. Customers will pay for these upgrades through a monthly surcharge on their water bills, and the bill savings from these upgrades will exceed the surcharge. When the program is launched in late May, Sebastopol residents who enroll in the program will begin saving on their utility bills and reduce their water consumption. Saving water also saves energy through reduced transportation, water treatment, and hot water use. Water Upgrade Save is a win-win for our customers and our climate goals. And finally, EVs and charging infrastructure. One way to reduce our transportation emissions is to accelerate electric vehicle adoption. The RCPA has been working with our local partners for several years to develop resources and tools to support this transition. For example, we created an online knowledge base with information on electric vehicles and charging stations. Over the next year, we plan to work with local community-based organizations to identify programs to make EVs more accessible and affordable to all residents. In conclusion, RCPA's vision is that Sonoma County is united in taking bold action to fight the climate crisis. To learn more and find out how you can get involved, please check out our website at rcpa.ca.gov. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. And go ahead and look in that chat, folks. We've got that website address right there for you. Let's hear now from Suzanne Smith with Sonoma County Transportation Authority, SCTA.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm lucky to follow Tanya because she described the board of directors that also makes up the Sonoma County Transportation Authority. We are a joint agency focused on transportation as well as climate. And we work closely with the public works departments, the transit operators, county parks, open space district, and others on climate and transportation related policies and projects. There were three kind of highlights I wanted to touch on this evening that are transportation and climate overlap. The first is related to transit. We don't run the transit systems, but there are 3 local bus operators here in Sonoma County, and we are working closely with them about how we transition out of the pandemic to grow transit ridership throughout the county. One way to do that is an updated sort of view on what transit is, and we're calling it a unified brand, where we look at fare integration, route planning, website and customer service interfaces, and marketing and outreach that is all with the same branding effect to make it easier on folks to get on a bus and know what the fares will be, where it will go, and how to access it. So that's a small step that we are working on right now to encourage more ridership coming out of the pandemic. The second item is related to active transportation planning. So this is walking, biking, non-motorized sorts of ways of getting around. And we are responsible for maintaining a countywide bicycle and pedestrian plan And we've got one, but it really needs a revamp. We need a new and visionary document. So we're going to be starting later this year an effort to update our bicycle and pedestrian plan. We sought a grant funding from Caltrans to do that work. And we're excited to update policies talking about bike sharing, which we will be implementing later this year, policies around class 4 bikeways, low stress systems for bike and pedestrians, so we can encourage people to get out of their cars and make those shorter trips by active transportation modes. The third project that is a climate transportation interface is related to Highway 37. This touches all 4 of the North Bay counties, but is a priority for our work because this project, this corridor, is an important transportation corridor, but it also has huge opportunity for resource enhancement and restoration. So we're working with a variety of partners, including our government and non-governmental organizations, on improvements that will allow for transit in the corridor, that will help reduce congestion, will help with bayland restoration and public access, and ultimately address sea level rise so that we don't lose that important east-west connector that without it, people either have to go south across the Richmond Santa Fe Bridge or north on our rural highways like 121. And that creates safety and congestion problems as well as lengthier trips. And again, no transit options. So that's a big piece of what we'll be working on in the coming years. The last thing I want to mention is we have a bonus bullet here, and that is thanks to the voters of Sonoma County who approved a 1/4-cent sales tax extension for transportation. We look forward to rolling that program out in the coming years with a focus on local projects that help achieve both our transportation and our climate goals. So thank you for the opportunity to share those with you this evening and look forward to hearing more.
Thanks a lot, Suzanne. Now we want to hear from you out there. Tell us what you think are the most important actions the County of Sonoma can take to ensure the county becomes carbon neutral by 2030. We've got about 2 minutes that we can ask for your continued comments. I know you've been commenting throughout. Sarah, what are you seeing?
See a lot. Rick Coates says complete a bicycle path network connected with smart stations, commercial areas, and providing access to city, county, and state parks. He has a few folks who agree with them there. Thank you, Rick. Those are the ideas we want to hear from you. Let's see, we have so many great ideas. Sunny Galbraith has a few. Pass an ordinance that bans construction of new gas stations. Place a moratorium on clearing of trees on public and private land. Pass an all-electric reach code for construction to eliminate natural gas in new construction. And pass the disposable food serviceware and polystyrene foam ban ordinance for the county. Thank you so much, Sunny, for your ideas. Are we seeing any comments on Facebook? It would be great to hear from those folks too. Just chime in.
We are. We've got about 30 people watching, and I'll share a few of the comments that are coming in. Anastasio suggesting more goats, like has taken place at Spring Lake. We've got a suggestion for less burn permits and more support for the chipper program, as well as support for alternate energy sources such as wind, water, and sun.
Thank you. I think everybody likes goats, right? That's one thing we can all agree on. And we're nonpartisan here as facilitators, but I think we all can agree on goats. Gina Kuklis says merge the 3 transit agencies into one system for a more smooth operation that is less costly to manage. Thank you, Gina. We also have Debbie McKay. Make sure that every public transit bus line has a stop adjacent to or as close as possible to a smart train stop.
Sarah, I was going to ask Lois if we have any emails that have come in. Any emails?
Yes, we do have some emails. One of them regarding Sonoma Water was for the county to streamline and subsidize gray water systems for existing homes and businesses. And another one is the non-smart traffic signals to get that better working to save carbon emissions. Also, there's been several comments on controlling emissions through the airport from air travel.
Yeah, we've been
and
seeing
then
that
also complete the streets Complete Streets program and improve public transportation.
Thank you for that. Sarah, I think we need to stop the comments right now and move on.
We'll keep the comments coming, but I'm going to stop reading them. So.
All right, perfect. Keep them coming. I see that they are. Do we have someone from Permit Sonoma here today?
We do.
And it's Tennis Wick himself. So would you please share with us a little bit about what you guys are doing to get us to carbon neutral by 2030?
You bet. And thanks for having me here today. It's so wonderful to see all those familiar faces like Pete and Trathan and Kimberly and Woody and Steve from the nonprofit communities that contribute so much. And even seeing fellow department heads and reminding me of the policy framework that all of us have worked on over the last 30 years. And Carol hinted to this, and that really is a land use framework that really supports climate action with general plans, a local coastal program, and specific plans that all center growth in cities. We are, as far as I know, the only county in the United States that has those general plans in unison, supported by voter-adopted urban growth boundaries, voter-adopted community separators, and voter-adopted ag preservation open space district investments that, of course, help support all those important policies. So that's been the work of everybody in Sonoma County, and it provides a great framework for reducing those miles traveled from work to home to fun. So with the general plan overhaul coming, we'll be looking to everyone that's with us tonight to contribute to that important document. Meanwhile, as Supervisor Hopkins indicated, we can't wait for 5 or 10 years. We need to act now. So we are working to re-examine our zoning ordinance and identify those uses that no longer have utility, may be hurting us. Obviously, gas stations are a point of contention, but also incentivizing those things we do need, like charging stations. So minimizing the amount of regulation that's needed for those. Re-examining solar farms and the permitting that it takes to get one adopted. It's going to mean a trade-off for other factors, but if we really want to incentivize them, we have to make it easier. Another thing we're involved in on every project and at a policy level, but also at a project review level, are vehicle miles traveled. This is the new standard for evaluating the transportation impacts from projects. And one of the things that everybody's struggling with in California is how to mitigate those impacts. Well, we know there's great demand for things that can help address climate greenhouse gas emissions. So examining whether we can fund through mitigation points, broadband, carbon sequestration and alternative transportation, and then the many things that Permit Sonoma is involved in with vegetation management. Our fire division, our natural resource divisions that work with Sonoma Water, the open space district on hopefully preventing fires, which are obviously huge carbon release, but also preventing them, encouraging sensible land practices that help prevent fires, but also sequester carbon at the same time. Look forward to people's comments. Thanks.
Thank you on that, Tennis. And next we have Stephanie Larson from the University of California Cooperative Extension, UCCE. But I also, before you start, Stephanie, I just want to thank you for your role in helping us design this program tonight. Thank you for that.
Thank you. So UCCE provides education and research-based programs that assist homeowners and landowners in reducing fire risk, creating climate strategies, and overall community resiliency. The reduction of catastrophic fires and the release of CO2 in the atmosphere and from the soil are critical issues currently being addressed by UCCE. Working with Pepperwood and Tuckman Geospatial, we developed the Wildfire Fuel Mapper, which create parcel maps for every parcel greater than 3 acres in Sonoma County. The report summarizes fuel hazards to help landowners understand fuels and mitigation practices. As a climate strategy, the Wildfire Fuel Mapper promotes landscape and forest management strategies that improve forest health and in turn enhance resilience to future fires, climate changes, stressors, and extreme events. It also reduces the risk of catastrophic fires so that carbon can stay sequestered in the ground. It reduces long-term impacts to communities and our ecosystems, such as soil, water, trees, regeneration. And in its improving forest health, it helps increase carbon sequestration and can better buffer the impacts of climate change, extremes, and other stressors. We have quite a few vegetation management programs and practices that we're working on. UCCE launched Match.Graze, the Good Fire Alliance, forest health workshops, and we're working partnerships to create workforce development. UCCE assesses land and practices to implement to reduce fire risk. And we're partnering with folks like circuit riders, and their crews will go out and implement these vegetation management practices. The practices that we are working on include prescribed grazing. Grazing reduces the fine fuels, which reduce the fire lengths and the bottom rung of the fire fuel ladder. Proper grazing can also improve soil health, resulting in greater carbon sequestration, water retention, biodiversity, and nutrient cycling. Also, we're looking at prescribed fire. Prescribed fire consumes much less biomass than intense wildfires, intentionally low intensity to reduce underbrush, small trees, and ladder fuels, while protecting larger trees. Whereas wildfires also consume larger trees that store significant amounts of carbon. The UCCE's Good Fire Alliance prescribed fires resulted in significantly less carbon released into the atmosphere. And UCCC's programs, such as prescribed fire, along with other vegetation management activities, such as thinning, demonstrate how forests can be more resilient to drought and other stressors by promoting tree health and reducing stand density. With our forest health, we're looking at carbon and trees, and then looking through the sequestration lens. Our forest health workshops highlight larger trees can be more effectively capturing carbon and store more carbon than smaller trees. Therefore, managing small dense stands is critical for carbon and climate impacts. Our other climate programs include working directly with farmers and ranchers on soil health initiatives. As we've mentioned, soil health is a key strategy for adapting to and mitigating climate change and can help ensure carbon sequestration and water retention in our landscapes. As drought and extreme events become more frequent and the intense under climate change, catastrophic fires could impact both landscape's ability to act as a climate mitigation, as in carbon sequestration, water, and storage, but also could prevent challenging issues to adapt to climate impacts. And our final point tonight is building resilient communities and local food system economies. UCCE is building community food security and local food system resiliency in disaster and emergencies by facilitating, coordinating, and convening communications, infrastructure, and resource referral, along with network building and fund development. Programs such as emergency food coordination through the COAD food group. Also, UCC programs is aiding in reducing food access barriers for underrepresented communities through that group. And UCC continues to provide educational outreach on growing and preserving food through food safety and composting for greater community food security through our post-fire food safety, our master gardeners, and our master food preservers. And finally, UCC is supporting farmers and ranchers to pivot to new markets in the face of climate change through innovative sale opportunities, looking at programs such as supply chain development and market diversification, along with farm fresh food boxes. Thank you very much for your attention tonight.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for all that great information. And now we want to hear from Rob Bamford with the Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to participate in this town hall meeting. The Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Control District represents constituents in its territory which are located east of Occidental and Forestville and north of Windsor. We are a state air pollution control district that regulates criteria pollutants, which includes nitrogen and sulfur dioxide, particulate matter, ozone, carbon monoxide, and toxics from stationary sources. The Air District does not have the regulatory authority over GHG emissions like it does with criteria pollutants, but it does actively support the reduction of climate-altering pollutants, including GHGs and black carbon. The Air District does this with its local and state partnerships and its incentive programs, which also help the county and the state to meet their GHG reduction and climate resiliency targets. Some of these activities we would like to share with you today. The first item we'd like to share is BioBiz, or the Biomass Business Competition, which is a first for Sonoma County. The Air District and a coalition of forest experts, business leaders, and public officials recognize that forest restoration is necessary to reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfires and to maintain healthy forest ecosystems. A recurring barrier to forest restoration activity is the removal and utilization of excess biomass that creates excess fire fuels and alters the native ecosystems. The goal of the competition is to spur local small business innovation to create high-value wood products from the excess biomass, to create complementary and ongoing partnerships that support forest restoration activities and to help maintain healthy forest ecosystems. And of course, we know that preventing catastrophic wildfires also reduces the harmful health effects of particulate matter in wildfire smoke and other toxics when urban regions are burned. The BioBiz competition is currently underway with 10 contestants, and this July it will award 2 winning biomass business concepts with startup funds to launch their small businesses. You can follow the competition and learn more about it at www.biomass.biz. For our second item, the district offers and participates in several impactful programs that reduce criteria and climate change pollutants. These include partnership programs, such as Cal EVIP that is bringing $6 million of EV charging sites into Sonoma County. The state's Moyer and Farmer programs that offer clean diesel replacements for older and dirtier diesel-powered on-road and off-road equipment and vehicles, including farm equipment. The district's wood stove replacement program that replaces non-EPA certified wood burning appliances with new certified wood pellet, gas, and electric heating units, and community air programs utilizing state funding under Assembly Bill 617, also known as the Community Air Protection Program. We are currently soliciting community input on this program. And our third bullet point, the district is a partner in defensible space and prescribed burning. At times, open burning can be a necessary tool to help homeowners maintain defensible space and to help land managers replicate natural burn events that help to clean out crowded understory and invasive species. Permits are required from the Air District to minimize smoke impacts on the air quality and with the fire agencies for fire safety. Remember that burning can only be performed with a valid permit on a permissive burn day. Thank you for your time today, and please feel free to visit our website to learn more about all of our program offerings and activities.
Thank you, Rob. A lot from your presentation that I had not known before. Thank you for that. So now it's time for us to hear some of your comments. I know you've been typing them in. Sarah, what are you seeing?
I'm providing a little technical support right this second. I'm passing on a name to Ross, our tech guru here, to maybe help out one of our participants. Anyway, let's see here. We have a lot of comments. We love them. Please keep these suggestions coming in. Rick Coates says, housing is the primary fuel in fires. Harden the housing. Thinning, quote unquote, as normally used is a Trojan horse for the timber industry. Thank you for that suggestion. Kenna Lee suggests Sonoma County can advocate with the Bay Area Air Quality Management to increase prescribed burns. Tom Conlon.
I'm going to stop you a second, Sarah, and check on our Facebook friends. Do we have any comments, Maggie or Crystal from Facebook?
Yeah, thanks to everyone who's chiming in on Facebook. I'll share a few. Rod Hulk wanted to mention some concerns around what it takes to make the batteries for electric cars. Also some concerns or inquiries around the balance of rezoning open spaces for housing, but also still maintaining open spaces. And lots of interest and comments around cannabis grows and how that relates to climate change.
Thank you. Any emails coming in?
Yes, BJ. One interesting email is talking about climate justice and how the burdens of change cannot fall disproportionately on the poor. And if climate entities push the creation of affordable housing projects as climate justice, That will force city and county planning departments to address housing as a climate justice issue.
Thank you for that thoughtful email. Thank you for that, Lois. Sarah, one or two more comments and then we need to move.
Yeah, from Barry Chertoff, stop permitting all new gas hookups, i.e. stop digging. We also have from Kathy Albury, solar farms should be on top of buildings and homes. No need to waste open space. Thank you for those great suggestions and keep them coming.
Thank you so much. We're going to move on now to Sonoma Clean Power and like to welcome Jeff Ciphers from Sonoma Clean Power.
Thank you, BJ, and thank you for including us. Sonoma Clean Power is the public electricity provider for Sonoma County alongside our partners at the city of Healdsburg, and we generate our region's electricity and send it to customers by renting PG&E's power lines. So we started producing electricity and serving customers in 2014, and our mission is to accelerate the shift to clean renewable energy and invest in our local economy. And our basic electric service has low greenhouse gas emissions, but it's still not good enough to meet our 2030 climate goals. And that really leads me to my first update today about Evergreen. And Evergreen is our 100% local renewable electric service, but it's something much more special than that. It's a model of how the world can supply energy in a sustainable way. And it's actually the United States' very first power service that produces renewable energy day and night that matches our customers' hourly energy use. And that's really important because historically, rooftop solar and other renewable sources have depended on natural gas power plants to keep homes and businesses powered after the sun sets or when the wind stops blowing. And Evergreen changes that by ensuring that base load renewable energy sources, the kind that run all the time, like geothermal, are making clean power when solar power can't. And so we've tripled participation in Evergreen over the last year, but we do need to go much further. And so my ask to everyone here today, the panelists and the participants, is to do two things. I ask you to sign up for Evergreen and call us at 1-855-202-2139, and I'll put that in the chat. And I ask your family, you to talk to your family and friends to sign up too. It typically costs about $5 to $15 a month more than typical service, depending on the size of your home. And my second update is on our Advanced Energy Center in downtown Santa Rosa. We're about to open California's very first facility dedicated to supporting people getting rid of methane, which is often marketed as, quote, natural gas, end quote. And that facility is going to have about 30 exhibits on how to heat and cool your home without methane, and how to save money on your water heater, and how to cook like a top-rated chef on an advanced range. And in just a few weeks, we're going to open the doors to the Energy Center, and it's located just a little bit east of the Russian River Brewing Company, for those who like Pliny. And we're going to host school field trips and contractor training and cooking classes, and also provide zero interest loans for folks to retrofit their homes. And so I encourage you to check in with sonomacleanpower.org in a few weeks to participate in that. And then my last update is really on our work to reduce the harm of PG&E's public safety power shutoffs. And over the past 2 years, PG&E has used these shutoffs to reduce fire risk during the dry season when they're expecting strong winds. And parts of Sonoma County have been really strongly impacted, like Rincon Valley and Agua Caliente. And we're advocating for PG&E to make targeted repairs to their grid to reduce the number of people impacted, because we understand that every PG&E power shutoff risks injury for medically sensitive and older people, and likely hospitalizations in some cases. So, to kind of sum up, we've exceeded our climate goals with producing electricity, but we have really very far to go in phasing out natural gas and gasoline from our system. And so I guess my last ask today is that everyone here, and I'm speaking to all of you, take a test drive in an electric car, try a bicycle, try an electric bike, kick the habit of driving on gasoline. That is going to make a major difference in everything that we're doing. And if you can do it without a car, that's great. And if not, do it with an electric car. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that, Jeff. Great words from Sonoma Clean Power. And now we need to hear from Zero Waste Sonoma, and we're pleased to welcome Leslie Lukash.
Great, thank you very much for having me. Zero waste is one of the quickest, easiest, and most effective steps for communities to immediately reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or GHG emissions. Most GHG inventories only measure what is generated within the city limits, like energy sources or cars on the road. But when it comes to what we eat and products we use, these items are usually produced and manufactured somewhere else in the nation or the world. These consumption emissions have significant carbon footprint. In addition, GHG emissions are typically classified by the sector-based, like transportation or electricity. But so much of our GHG emissions come from a system-based approach of extracting resources from the earth, producing resources into products, and transporting those products all over the world, then finally disposing those products in the landfill. The EPA subsequently studied the system-based approach and calculated the way we produce, consume, and dispose of our goods and food accounts for 42% of the nation's greenhouse gases. This means the choices we make about the stuff we have is a big impact on climate action. Zero Waste Sonoma is dedicated to minimizing wasting while maximizing recycling, reusing, and composting throughout Sonoma County. Recycling not only keeps materials out of our landfill, but reduces the energy used to make new products from virgin resources. The EPA created a calculator called the Waste Reduction Model, which calculates the life cycle GHG emissions from how we manage materials and resources to make new products from recycled resources and materials. The calculator accounts for the energy saved from the recycling of materials to make new products and the composting of our organic materials, as well as landfill emissions. We use the WARM calculator emissions saved from recycling and composting efforts here throughout Sonoma County. When organic materials such as food scraps, food soil, paper, and yard trimmings are discarded in a landfill, they decompose anaerobically or without oxygen and produce methane, a potent greenhouse gas. Methane is 72 times more potent than CO2 over a 20-year period. This means every ton of methane will trap as much heat into the atmosphere as 72 tons of carbon. Landfills are the top source of methane production, and one that could be easily avoided if we stopped landfilling organic materials and started composting them instead. The state of California passed a revolutionary bill called SB 1383, which requires a reduction of organic material disposed in the landfill by 75% by 2025 to reduce the generation of methane. Zero Waste Sonoma is working hard in collaborations with the 9 jurisdictions and the county to reduce organic materials going to our local landfill. Lastly, applying compost to our agricultural and rangeland is critically important opportunity to keep more carbon out of the atmosphere and start reversing the damage already done. Our soils actually store 3 times more carbon than plants, making compost an incredible carbon sink when applied to soil. Research in California found that applying less than a half an inch of compost to just 5% of California's rangelands would reduce GHG emissions by equivalent of taking 6 million cars off the road each year. We're actively working with various stakeholders on projects to sequester carbon throughout Sonoma County soils with compost made from organic material collected in our commercial and residential green bin. So thank you for your time, and I really look forward to hearing your comments.
So many wonderful ideas that you shared with us. Thank you, Leslie. Now we want to check in on your comments. Again, keep those comments coming. Sarah, what are you seeing?
We have a lot of comments coming in. People were very excited about these 2 last presentations. We have Shannon Johnson. Electric rate structures are making a huge hit to those of us who got solar over 15 years ago. It seems to be a corporatization of the issue. As a homeowner with older solar, I'm struggling. Thank you, Shannon, for your comment. Eric Weaver from the Sonoma County Bicycle Coalition is happy to be working with Sonoma Clean Power's e-bike incentive program, offering free helmets and safety classes. Let's see, we have a lot.
Let's hear from Facebook while you're looking for one. We'll take about 30 more seconds on these. Facebook, Maggie.
Yeah, so we have Bob's reminding us about the connection between the wildfires and climate change. It's always an important reminder. And we have a creative suggestion from Danielle saying that we should have gondolas to get the traffic up off the street. So thanks for that suggestion.
Thank you. Lois, are we hearing any emails coming in? Seeing anything there?
Yes, we do have a couple. Several people have commented that the Sonoma County land use policies is greatly going to determine how successful this program or our efforts are. And specifically, they're looking at the overly restrictive zoning Z overlay that precluded building accessory dwelling units, as well as the latest ABAG regional housing allocation and Sonoma County's proposed cannabis ordinance.
Thank you for that, Lois. Sarah, a final comment or two before we move on.
From Jane Ellen, provide incentives for all Sonoma County schools to collect all acceptable food waste for compost to be picked up by a county agency. We also have another comment here from Debbie McKay. Keep compost production in Sonoma County instead of trucking out materials which may be composted locally. A lot of agreements to her comment there. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you for that, Sarah. I would just like to check in now with Supervisors Hopkins and Gorin to get a reaction on what you've been seeing and hearing so far.
Well, wow. Thank you all for offering your fabulous comments and sticking with us during the first hour of the presentation. And I love the format, and I hope you did as well. Really snappy presentations, and it's very exciting to hear your ideas. Just keep them coming. Linda?
Thank you so much. I'm really enjoying following along with all of the written comments in real time. I also want to say, I know this is a lot of information to digest, and some folks are kind of struggling to keep up with the chat and also listen. So do know that we will have a recording of this available for you afterwards. And of course, we're also going to be compiling all of the comments. So we'll also have a record of everything that folks were sharing. So thank you so much. Keep the great information coming. And I can't wait to hear from our community presenters coming up in the next hour.
Thank you.
And we both want to thank the amazing panelists who presented their 3 points in as specified in the request that we made of you. Short, sweet, to the point, and pithy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, you all have worked hard, and now you deserve a 3-minute stretch break. We shouldn't be sitting any longer than 60 minutes. So take a 3-minute stretch break, and we'll be right back in 3 minutes.
And keep your comments coming.
That's right. I think we're ready to get started again. Everybody gets back on. See our panelists showing back up. Okay, thank you. Just some reminders. Again, use that Q&A feature. You know how to do it. You've been doing it. Again, email if you'd like, post on Facebook. And we really want to hear comments, everything that you can share with us on how we can get to carbon neutral by 2030. Again, use respectful language and refrain from using swear words. You've all been doing a great job with that. And refrain from personal attacks. You've been doing a great job with that too. So with that, we are going to move on to a group. The next group are all the different community organizations, our community climate partners. So let's kick it off by hearing from the Climate Center. And we have Nina Turner, who is the Climate Center's Energy Program Coordinator.
Hi, thank you. As just introduced, my name is Janina Turner. I'm with the Climate Center, and I want to take this moment to thank all of the Spanish translators on the back end doing this work. I know it can be a little hard when we're talking so fast, so I'll try to slow it down. So my presentation today will provide you with an overview of the Climate Center's flagship campaign, Climate Safe California, and to invite you, if you like what you hear, to endorse the campaign, as over 1,000 California leaders, organizations, and ordinary individuals already have. The Climate Center is a climate and energy policy nonprofit founded in 2001 here in Sonoma County. Climate Safe California is our 5-year campaign to enact by 2025 the bold suite of policies required by science that will put California on track to dramatically reduce emissions, start drawdown, and secure resilient communities by 2030. It is a unique, bold, urgently needed, and comprehensive campaign that will catalyze similar efforts in other states, the nation, and the world. Our guiding principles that form all Climate Safe California policies and programs are contained in these 3 points that you see on your screen. First, a campaign to accelerate California's climate policies and goals to get to net negative emissions by 2030. California is falling behind other governments in the US and around the world and needs to pull ahead to reclaim its leadership. Once at the forefront of global climate action, the state is banking on outdated policies in the face of an exploding crisis. Current goals are inadequate. As bold as the governor's call for 100% EV sales by 2035 is, it is not enough. For example, the conservative government in the UK recently set a goal of 68% reduction below 1990 emissions by 2030 and getting to 100% zero emission vehicle sales by 2030. California must accelerate existing greenhouse gas reduction targets. The state must double its ambition to achieve 80% below 1990 levels of emissions and sequester enough carbon to achieve net negative emissions and begin the initial stages of drawdown by 2030. Our work in our campaign is aligned with the latest science. The campaign translates the latest science, the urgent need for bold action in the face of worsening impacts, and the groundswell of public support into tangible speed and scale greenhouse gas reductions. Professor Dan Kamen from UC Berkeley and climate scientist V. Ramanathan from the Scripps Institute at UC San Diego, working with several other authors and the Climate Center, just released a paper that summarizes the current science and says that California must do more and endorses the targets that I have just mentioned above. We have also been working on and supporting a bill at the legislature with Senator Henry Stern's office that will establish the first ever statutory goal for the state to achieve net negative emissions with a target of 2035. And finally, a really important pillar is securing a just transition for fossil fuel workers and promoting climate justice through inclusion and equity. As we transition to a clean energy economy globally and in California, we must ensure that workers, their families, and the communities dependent on fossil fuel industries are not left behind. Policymakers must prioritize and ensure support for lower income, Black, Brown, Indigenous, and Asian communities to achieve these urgent decarbonization goals equitably and rapidly. The state must close the climate gap that sometimes hidden, under-recognized, and often disproportionate impact climate change has had on lower income people of color when enacting new policies. So to learn more, to endorse Climate Safe California, to learn more about the bills, please visit our website in the chat, theclimatecenter.org. And thank you again for inviting us and for all your time.
And thank you, Nina. And we'll move on to daily acts. We're going to hear from Traythan Heckman. Take it away.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight and hosting this forum. If you'd like to find out more about daily acts, you could go to our website. Though what I want to talk about is 3 key paradigm shifts that I think we need to make to address the climate crisis. In writing about places to intervene in a system, Donella Meadows cited that the mindset or paradigm that drives the goals, rules, and culture is the most impactful place to focus. And so the first one is around water and climate. Water is the largest greenhouse gas and significantly influences our climate, yet it's not a big part of the climate conversation. Most climate policy and goals and conversations are about fossil fuels and decarbonizing, which is incredibly important for mitigation. And we definitely need to increasingly focus on carbon sequestration, which requires water to protect and grow this precious thin skin of soil that society depends on. Water is a much bigger story that we can all impact at all scales and in all conversations. And so we need to help create a culture that treasures, conserves, and recycles every drop of water and every scrap of carbon. We need to reduce deforestation and stormwater runoff to support regenerative ag and landscape practices, and to spread solutions like gray water systems, rainwater catchment, and other conservation practices. 20 years ago, our Board of Supervisors was the first in the state to adopt a standalone water resource element in the general plan. We could follow this lead and create a water element in our climate plans to bring the water conversation forward. The second paradigm shift is around valuing the power of small. In a world of overwhelmingly large challenges, the power of small is bigger than we think. It's our small daily actions, it's small climate victory gardens, regenerating the small water cycle, and small groups of world changers like the folks who advocated for our climate emergency resolutions around the county and the 2030 climate targets that brought us here tonight. But we need small at scale. It's collective action that prioritizes and incentivizes solutions that are low cost, low tech, nature sourced, and people powered. One of our goals should be to lead the country in implementation of these accessible, spreadable solutions. And we need to show our community how much of an impact it is when small adds up, especially with things like consumption-based emissions, which need community engagement to address. And the third mindset shift is around how critical it is to build community climate leadership for success. As Supervisor Hopkins noted at the start, the way we are working is not working. Given the urgency and complexity of our challenges, we need a more adaptive network leadership structure like the one in this image to engage the wisdom and experience of all of our communities, especially frontline and underrepresented ones. Sonoma County has a phenomenal array of organizations, networks, and coalitions in addition to all our government partners. And we need to invest in making these organizations' networks stronger, better connected, and aligned. If you think about how critical social infrastructure is for the transformation that's needed, it is radically underinvested in. A few local examples include the way Health Action is supported, the way the county provided funding to develop our Food System Alliance, and recently, Petaluma Climate Emergency Framework calls for developing a climate action network. Daily Acts is also piloting an equitable climate action coalition in Petaluma that will fund frontline community members to learn about climate change and to engage with City Council and Climate Commission, bringing these valuable underrepresented voices to the table. And this is what it's about. It's about a seat at the table for the community, a new set of connected tables to really unleash the power of community to rise to this moment. So thank you for everyone here tonight and all the hard work everyone's doing to keep on showing up and stepping into the moment.
Thank you to you, Traythan. Let's go ahead and hear what people are saying. Again, keep those comments coming. Sarah, what are you seeing?
We see Harriet Buck Walter. Good to see you here, Harriet. Yes to everything that Mr. Heckman is saying about water. We need to shift our thinking around water use, and the county needs to address water impacts from all land uses. Let's see here. We have some other comments from John Nagel. There is a concept of intrinsic value of our natural system and eco services that everyone is asking for. Monetizing these intrinsic values would create the bank against which the funds can be raised to increase the intrinsic value, creating a virtuous cycle of investment and increased value.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's hear from Facebook. What's going on out there, Maggie?
Let's see, Debbie Ramirez added onto the gondola thread suggesting monorails. And Aphrodite wanted to bring attention to PG&E and their role in cutting trees and sharing concern about the importance of when trees are being cut, not having it be filled by invasive high fuel plants.
Thank you. Any emails, Lois?
Yes, there have been several emails that have reiterated the need for equity to be front and center on all solutions. And then also fund and staff the regional climate protection at a level required to meet our goals.
Thank you, Lois. One more comment from Sarah before we...
A comment question from Marshall Belling. Why is Sonoma County advocating water catchment as a solution to groundwater shortages? That's stealing water from all downstream needs. Thank you, Marshall, for your comment question.
I don't know about you, Sarah, but I'm so excited about the number of comments that I see coming in. It's really,
Me too.
really...
I can't wait to dig into them after.
Absolutely. Let's move on now to Sunrise Movement. We're going to hear from the youth of Sonoma County and Paulina Lopez, please.
Hello, thank you for having us here. My name is Paulina Lopez, and I just want to acknowledge that I am on Southern Pomo. I'm an organizer with the Sunrise Movement in our local chapter here in Sonoma County. I have been involved with Sunrise since November 2019. The Sunrise Movement is a youth-led movement that focuses on strong policies to combat climate change, such as the Green New Deal. The Green New Deal is a congressional resolution. It is a plan that focuses on tackling climate change by divesting from the fossil fuel industry, and at the same time, it focuses on addressing social issues such as economic inequality, racial injustice. This policy calls on the federal government to dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions by creating high-paying jobs and ensuring clean air and water. Locally, we believe that policies like the Green New Deal can be applied here in our home. The following bullet points are ideas of the Green New Deal that we believe that can change our environment and community. One of the important pillars of the Green New Deal is the guarantee of good jobs for all. The Green New Deal strongly focuses on a just transition by ensuring jobs that will help our society to a new climate-conscious economy and a more sustainable community. Good jobs for all ensures that people will have good benefits, good wages, and it opens the opportunity to unionize. Given the yearly climate catastrophes that we face locally, we must ensure to create pathways for young people to do community resiliency work to a livable future. When it comes to making decisions for a community, they must be made by community members. Climate disasters continue to impact our most disadvantaged community members, such as our communities of color, agricultural, domestic, and cleanup workers. Not only should we be including them in our decision-making, but we must ensure that we focus on language justice in order to get them involved. We should be opening opportunities for local indigenous and our communities of color to give them the chance to engage and lead the way to a just transition. Equity and representation is essential to move our home towards a sustainable community. Thank you.
Thank you for your inspiring remarks, Paulina. We appreciate it. Let's move on now to Sonoma County Conservation Action with public interest environmental lawyer, Kimberly Burr. Is Kimberly able to join us this evening? Okay, if not, we'll go right to comments and see what you have to say about just
I'm
heard.
here.
Oh,
I'm
you
here.
are? Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to take a moment and say yay, because for many long years, people and individuals, organizations, and county leaders have worked hard to figure out how we're going to start protecting our precious woodlands and forests and trees. So they're very important in helping us draw down the carbon that we already, the CO2 in the atmosphere that we already have emitted. So they're a very important component of our climate strategy. I wanted to thank Supervisors Hopkins and Gorin for their leadership on this issue. Where we are now is really good. Broadly speaking, we have to protect our woodlands. It's a scientific imperative, and it's really an important way to address the climate emergency. The scientists are telling us we need to make significant progress to protect our woodlands while drastically reducing our emissions. So for example, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, standing forests are the only proven system that can remove and store vast amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere at the scale necessary to keep global temperature rise below 1.5 degrees Celsius this century. So this is just science that's pretty undeniable. The IPCC goes on to say, and I'm going to paraphrase, we find that growing the existing forest as intact ecosystems is a low-cost approach for immediately increasing atmospheric carbon sequestration and to reduce our climate risks. So it's put more simply by another group led by a guy named Mr. Lewis and his colleagues, and they said, with respect to pulling harmful carbon out of the atmosphere, natural forests are by far the most effective. So this is all just to say that standing forest, the trees we have now, are very valuable to us all, especially when it comes to fighting climate change. So we look forward to completing a comprehensive and straightforward tree protection policy this year. We need a comprehensive policy because trees can't read zoning maps. A comprehensive approach would start with the science that's outlined above, that no woodlands should presumptively be considered expendable. And it will start by asking questions like, should we be cutting trees down to produce energy? And the new model could potentially eliminate what we call trading, tree trading. You can cut down trees if you pay a fee, or you can cut down trees if you replace them with baby trees. The scientists tell us that if we ever did have time to regrow a forest, we don't have that time anymore. Just ask a 16-year-old. The whole effort now is to keep our woodlands working as we race to reduce our emissions. So we have to get out of this hole, and both are needed quickly. Both efforts are needed quickly. I have been totally inspired by the little city that roared, and it made its name on the national scene by simply taking common sense measures to ban future gas stations. Hats off to the city of Petaluma and the members of the public for creating a common sense public policy and achieving such well-earned recognition. So with the talent we have in our county and our agencies and in our skilled leaders, we can set another groundbreaking example by really protecting our trees and our shared need to address climate change and climate crisis. Unfortunately for us, protecting working woodlands, like discouraging new fossil fuel infrastructure, basically costs us nothing, and it frees up funds for other efforts. So protecting our trees to help the climate is so important, yet it is simply picking the low-hanging fruit. So as our little slide shows, we are asking for a temporary timeout on approvals of applications for significant tree removals. We're trying to raise the value of trees as important mitigations to climate change that is already occurring, helping us to store water and protect our soils and protect our vulnerable communities from the heat. So we're very excited to work with staff and look forward to incorporating climate science and modern thinking into new public policy in a time frame that is meaningful to us today. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you again for all your work.
Thank you, Kimberly. And now it's time for us to just stop a little bit and see what everybody's saying. Keep those comments coming. Sarah, you seeing any trends out there?
We do. Well, let's see here. A lot of concern about logging. Sarah Jones suggests that we prevent the logging of the Gualala River shed. And we actually heard our first comment about the ocean and water resources. From Andrea, I'm interested in what is being done for the kelp forest to our west that has been decimated by warm and acidic waters and replaced by sea urchins. Kelp forests are a huge carbon sink and a nursery for so many species. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if we have anything from Facebook that we want to hear about.
We do. Mikey simply said more regulations, not something we always hear. We also have a comment from Justine Lott mentioning the importance of water quality and the need to look at agricultural runoff and the connection to groundwater.
Got it. What about Lois? Any emails coming in?
Yeah, we've had a few. Actively educate, inform, and engage the community to fulfill these goals. And include clear milestones and track and publicly report the annual progress towards these 2030 goals.
Thank you very much for that, Lois. Sarah, a couple more comments.
Couple comments. Maya says, excellent point from Kimberly Burr. Keep existing forests and please slow down on extractions. Even the burned redwoods are recovering, so please keep them in the ground. Same for oak woodlands. And Kevin Anderson says, all community planning efforts related to this project, the climate change plan, should include at least 2 youth board members with equal standing to adults. Actually, I think he means any community planning events. Thanks, Kevin, for your suggestion. Also,
yeah, of course, Sarah.
I'm going to post a link to the County of Sonoma's YouTube page, which is where this entire town hall will be posted. So you'll be able to access it there. We have a few folks asking. Thank you, BJ.
Thank you, Sarah. And now we're going to move on to the group that gets the award for the coolest acronym, CONGAS. That's the Coalition Against New Gas Stations. And welcome Woody Hastings and Jenny Blaker.
Well, first of all, a climate emergency resolution was passed by the County of Sonoma in September 2019, pledging to reevaluate existing policies through the lens of a climate emergency. It makes no sense to build new gas stations in 2021. This will only prolong and expand dependency on fossil fuels into the future. Vehicle transportation accounts for a large proportion of the county's greenhouse gas emissions. Recently, Governor Newsom issued an executive order prohibiting the sale of new gasoline-powered vehicles from 2035. Several large companies, including GM, are phasing out the production of gasoline-powered vehicles. Instead, in the near term, we should encourage better and safer facilities for bicyclists and pedestrians, improve public transportation, and install electric vehicle charging infrastructure in places where people live, work, and spend time. In the longer term, we should support land use planning that minimizes the need for vehicle transportation.
Gasoline use leaves a wake of human and environmental destruction that disproportionately impacts communities of color and indigenous communities around the world, at the point of extraction, the building of pipelines, or near refineries. The burning of fossil fuels is a major cause of air pollution, and air pollution is a leading cause of death. It is time that we moved away from burning fossil fuels for energy to supporting truly clean, renewable sources of energy, such as solar and wind. CONGAS first opposed the construction of a new gas station in a rural area 2 miles northwest of Cotati in February 2019. So far, CONGAS has been successful in defeating 3 new gas station proposals when the applicants withdrew in the face of fierce public opposition. In every case, there are site-specific causes of concern, from the impacts of potential leaks and spills on waterways, groundwater, and sensitive habitat, to local neighborhood concerns about traffic congestion and safety. We're currently working on defeating 5 gas station proposals, 2 in Santa Rosa, 2 in unincorporated Sonoma County, and we're in a support role for the Petaluma Safeway gas case, which is being led by No Gas Here, and which is in the Sonoma County Superior Court. On February the 22nd, Petaluma made its long-standing moratorium on new gas stations permanent. CONGAS is working with Sebastopol and Santa Rosa on their own prohibitions. Regarding county level action, this is what we propose the county to do. Rather than CONGAS and other community members continuing to oppose individual gas station proposals and county staff wasting time and effort on such proposals, we urge the supervisors to adopt a county-wide prohibition, or at least an ordinance that maximizes restrictions on new gas stations.
Congress has met with each of the supervisors individually over the past year and has submitted a draft ordinance for consideration. We also submitted a letter yesterday with about 25 Sonoma County organizations and 80 individuals in support. We urge the county to adopt an ordinance as described at the earliest practicable time. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Jenny and Woody, for your comments tonight. Let's move on to the Carbon Cycle Institute with Dr. Jeff Creek.
Thank you very much. And thanks for the opportunity to participate in this really important conversation. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions is absolutely imperative. But Sonoma County can only achieve carbon neutrality by 2030 by engaging its working farms and ranches to increase carbon sequestration in its soils and vegetation through the process of carbon farming. That is the management of our working lands for enhanced beneficial photosynthetic carbon capture and its storage in soils and vegetation. Sonoma County is uniquely positioned to lead on carbon farming and to deploy a model that can be replicated throughout the state and the nation. The county has a strong set of partners anchored by the Gold Ridge and Sonoma Resource Conservation Districts, Ucce Cooperative Extension, the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service, Fibershed, and of course the Carbon Cycle Institute, which have the collective experience and long-term working partnerships needed to bring this work to fruition. Increasing carbon storage in Sonoma County soils is also the highest and best use of the mulches and compost produced through diversion of organic waste streams through the efforts of Zero Waste Sonoma and others. Co-benefits of increasing carbon storage on our working lands through carbon farming include increased soil water holding capacity, increased soil water infiltration, increased groundwater recharge, reduced need for fertilizer and pesticide use, increased agricultural productivity, increased food security, increased biodiversity, increased resilience to extreme weather events, and of course, job creation. Carbon farming supports the resilience of agriculture in Sonoma County, and Sonoma farmers and ranchers have already begun working with the county's 2 resource conservation districts to implement over 20 carbon farm plans. Local matching funds can attract state, federal, and philanthropic funds to advance carbon farming to the scale necessary to meet the county's climate mitigation and resilience goals. To build the physical, social, and economic capacity for successful carbon sequestration at scale in Sonoma County working landscapes, we need to secure additional significant and permanent resource conservation district funding. We need to scale up the infrastructure necessary to fully implement carbon farm plans across the county, including more plant nurseries and trained Conservation Corps personnel. We need to develop a comprehensive carbon-focused urban landscape and gardening education campaign, develop carbon sequestration training for landscape professionals and county and municipal parks and recreation staff. We need to implement equity recommendations that have been identified by the Climate Action Advisory Committee and other community partners. And we need to create a sequester local program to help Sonoma County businesses reinvest their carbon offset or carbon inset dollars within the community. Sequestration of carbon in our working lands is essential to both achieve and move beyond neutrality to a net drawdown of carbon dioxide, while offering multiple ecosystem services and agricultural production and economic co-benefits. Enhancing the capacity of our working lands to draw down carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and sequester that beneficially as organic matter in soils and vegetation is essential for an effective response to the climate crisis. Our resource conservation districts, in partnership with the supporting organizations I mentioned earlier, are poised and ready to do this work if we can bring the necessary financial resources to the task. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeff. We appreciate it. Now we've got time for a reflection on a couple of comments. Again, please get your comments in the Q&A function. Sarah, what are you seeing?
We have a few. Alexa Forrester says, I hope the supervisors will follow Petaluma's lead and ban new gas stations. Conga is right. It is just a horrible idea to build new gas stations in 2021. Thank you, Alexa. From anonymous attendee, very creative name. We have a just transition off of fossil fuels that provides good union jobs to do resiliency work for anyone who wants one. We must also invite communities of color and those most impacted by climate change to the table to be decision makers as we build a more resilient future. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's go ahead and hear from Facebook. Anything new, Maggie?
Yes, we have a comment from Erin sharing some concern about the impact of the average consumption calculation on homeowners with wells. She says that she supports environmental improvements, but doesn't want to be penalized because of a well that's not tied to the city water. She's saying that there shouldn't be a fee for people with wells.
Thank you. Any emails coming in?
Yes, we've had several, certainly over the last week and even today, regarding the support for no new gas stations in Sonoma County, as well as a couple that reiterate the need to invest in bicycle and pedestrian connections across the county.
Thank you, Lois. Sarah, we're just going to move on now, I think. Is that okay with you? All right, so we're going to move on to the next presenter, which is Sonoma County Climate Mobilization. And we have Pete Gang with us today. Pete.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank all the supervisors for taking the climate crisis seriously. The concentration of atmospheric CO2 is now almost 50% higher than at any time during the presence of our species on Earth. The last time the Earth's atmosphere saw CO2 levels at these levels was around 3 million years ago. The Earth then was largely ice-free and sea levels were hundreds of feet higher than at present. This suggests to me that the term climate emergency is not an overstatement of our current predicament. While we as a county cannot solve this monumental crisis alone, we do have a moral obligation to do everything that is within our power. Back in 2005, Sonoma County set a precedent when all the cities in the county resolved to reduce their carbon emissions 25% below 1990 levels by 2015. Admitting failure, we then moved the target date to 2020. And again, we failed to meet our goal. We've now increased our ambition from a 25% reduction to a 100% reduction in emissions by the year 2030. That's only 9 years from now. If we continue to craft policy in our accustomed manner and at the pace of government, the only possible outcome is failure. But this time, failure is not an option. If we're serious in our intent to meet our 2030 goals for mitigation, sequestration, and adaptation, we must be willing to think beyond business as usual and address the climate crisis as if it were an emergency, because it is an emergency. We need a shared vision of where we're headed, a clear vision of an equitable, resilient, carbon neutral Sonoma County in the year 2030. What will our cities, our streets, our buildings, our food systems look like and be like when we've weaned ourselves off of fossil fuels? To initiate this discussion, I invite everyone to visit imaginesonomacounty.com to help craft such a crowdsourced vision of a future Sonoma County. Several years ago, the author Bill McKibben said something like, to solve climate change, we need an effort on the scale of the one that put a man on the moon. Only this time, we need to put everybody on the moon. We're not going to get the rapid and transformative changes that are needed through legislation and policies alone. It is essential that we engage and educate the people of our county in our climate efforts. Instead of sweeping climate issues under the rug, as has been our habit, let's instead craft policies that gently influence people's habits and behaviors, like the plastic bag ban that got people to start carrying their own grocery bags. How about an anti-idling ordinance like Santa Cruz and Boise and Brattleboro have passed? How about locating recycling containers alongside every trash container throughout the county, as is common throughout Europe? How about making our county safely bikeable for people of all ages and abilities, as we have long promised? Together, we will prevail. Thank you much.
Pete, we really appreciate your insight. Thank you for that. And we need to move on to the groups that, our oldest group, founded in 1892, the Sierra Club with Steve Bertelbaugh. Steve.
Thank you for this opportunity. The Sierra Club recognizes that addressing the climate crisis will require steady reductions in the use of cars and trucks because they are responsible for more greenhouse gas emissions than any other sector of the economy. If Sonoma County is to reach carbon neutrality by 2030, we probably need to reduce our driving by 5% or more each year over the next 9 years. It'll be important to work on an equitable carbon budget to guide our reduced driving. We might decide that those with electric cars or trucks can cut back their driving at lesser rates than those with gas-powered vehicles. Drivers of electric vehicles will still need to reduce driving because all vehicles have carbon embedded in their manufacture, and all cars and trucks inflict wear and tear on roads, and carbon has to be used to repair them. As we adjust our travel habits, the county will need to make sure that new and existing developments are less auto-dependent. In many places, trips are already short enough to be made on foot or on a bicycle, especially on electric bicycles. We need to have more walkable communities and find ways to reduce driving by visitors. There are 4 major ways to reduce driving without harming our economy. First, by focusing growth in walkable urbanized areas. Second, by expanding the network of bike and pedestrian routes and making them more safe and attractive. Third, by making it more convenient to ride the bus and train. And fourth, by shifting heavy goods movement from trucks to trains. There's a silver lining in all these changes. We won't be investing money in construction of many new roads, nor will we be paying to widen many existing roads. And with all of us driving our cars and trucks less and less every year, the county's budget for pothole repair may finally begin to catch up with the wear and tear of our driving. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the goals that we're trying to reach. We hope we'll be able to reach them. Thank you.
And thank you, Steve, for the opportunity to hear from you. Appreciate that. Let's check in with the participants who are out there, you folks that are sending your comments. I can't believe we must have over 1,000 comments tonight. Sarah, what are you seeing?
Well, we have over 290, I can tell you that. We have a lot of folks who are supporting comments from Steve and Pete, basically that you're preaching the gospel, and you've got a lot of fans out there. We have some comments here, a comment from Josette. If we are to bike and walk, we need to be safe. Sonoma County is not safe for walking or biking. Note all the recent deaths in Sonoma Valley. Cyclists and pedestrians need their own paths. Thank you, Josette. I also have one other quick comment here. This one is from Maya. Excellent presentation from Pete Gang. Thank you so much for a clear statement. Yes to ending our dependence on fossil fuels. Please let's say yes to and a dependence to the ending of the dependence on forest fuels. Thank you, Maya.
Thank you, Sarah. What about Facebook, Maggie?
Yes, thanks to Danielle Devine for submitting a couple comments. She's suggesting energy use through turbines, and then also expressed some concern about the cutting down of trees, specifically calling out a forest bill.
Thank you for that. We're going to move right into the next presentation now from the Sonoma Ecology Center, and we have Caitlin Cornwall with us. Caitlin.
AJ, I actually don't see Caitlin in the panelist.
Okay, I'm sorry for that. Maybe Jane, you can try to email her or during this next presentation, and we can see if we can get her on after the next presentation. Do we have with us Max Bell Alper from North Bay Jobs with Justice?
Yeah, I'm here.
Are you freshly vaccinated for your COVID vaccine?
I am actually.
That's why he
Thank you
wanted
for-
to go. He wanted to go last because he already had his vaccination schedule. Congratulations. Take it away, Max.
Great. And can you hear me and see me all right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, first of all, for adjusting the schedule. Did have to make sure that we all get vaccinated. And so for folks who don't know, North Bay Jobs with Justice, we are a coalition. Oh, looks like Caitlin is maybe, sorry, I'm just noticing that.
Okay, you
Caitlin-
continue, and Caitlin will go right. Caitlin will go next. She'll.
Okay, no problem. Didn't want to jump the line.
Nope,
But
no
so for
worries.
folks who don't know, North Bay Jobs with Justice, we're a coalition of 26 different organizations, labor and community organizations here in Sonoma and Napa County, with a real belief in building a progressive labor movement that works, that makes the economy work for all of us. And so we've heard a lot of great ideas here, and I would echo a lot of what was said. But in particular, we want to bring a focus about the workers, right? And there's been a lot of talk about workforce development, but we need to really recognize that not all jobs are equal here. And not all jobs actually help us get out of this crisis. And so, but first and foremost, as we talk about land stewardship and vegetation management, from our perspective, it's really important to listen and follow Indigenous leadership. We are on Pomo and Miwok, Wapo land, and many of peoples have actually been doing, Indigenous land practices for thousands and thousands of years. And we need to figure out ways that we're actually working in collaboration here. This also extends to Indigenous migrants who are coming from Mexico and Central America, who are often coming to work in the fields and vineyards, who also carry that ancestral knowledge of how to do this kind of land stewardship. And so as we think about moving into this new work, we want to really recognize the experience of workers who labor on the land right now. These are farm workers, these are incarcerated firefighters, these are disaster cleanup workers. And we think if we're going to look to create new jobs, we should start with this knowledge that people have. And with all the challenges that come with working as a farm worker, especially during wildfires, people have an incredible knowledge of how to work on our land. And we can't just skip that, and we have to start with the people who do the work. And then lastly, as we're talking about creating these jobs, making sure that if, especially as we're using public funds, we need to create good union jobs. And this is to do the kind of climate adaptation and mitigation work to make our communities more fire resilient. And at the end of the day, if we create more jobs that treat people like farm workers are treated right now, and like incarcerated firefighters are treated, and like disaster cleanup workers are treated, if that's the way, we're not going to be able to get out of this climate crisis by creating more jobs like how people are being treated right now. In fact, we have an opportunity to go against what we have done and to be able to right the wrongs of the past and create a much more equitable economy that puts justice and workers first. And so I hope that folks will join us in making sure that we're not just creating jobs, we're creating good union jobs for the people who have actually been doing the work on the land. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Max. And I know that Caitlin is here. She signed on as an attendee instead of a presenter. So I'm wondering if we can hear you. Can we hear you, Caitlin?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Beautiful. Wonderful. Well, I'll be happy to wrap up here then. Many of the comments I'm making here can be found in a document called The Roadmap for Climate Resilience in Sonoma County by the North Bay Climate Adaptation Initiative, some members of whom are in this meeting and for which I was a lead author. My first point I want to make is that our homes are our resilience. And this statement reflects 30 years of the Ecology Center's experience, moving from environmental education, realizing that we needed to go broader to conflict resolution, then into ecological restoration, and then from there into climate adaptation, and now moving ever wider into housing affordability. Why is this true that homes are an important place to focus for resilience? It's because there's not enough money or time for us to solve one problem at a time. We need to take actions that solve all the problems at the same time. On the left, this is called intersectionality. And on the right, it's called efficiency or return on investment. In terms of solving a lot of problems at once, we recommend looking at our homes, where we lay our heads at night. That's where climate, health, equity, security, and land use all intersect. We all know that new housing is colossally expensive financially and politically, but doing it right brings benefits that are at the scale with its costs. So bullet one, taking a wider look at the costs and benefits of changing where and how we build housing, how we maintain it, how we price people's homes could set us on a path for a stable, more equitable future. Second main point, the land is our security. I'm a biologist. I'm a biologist working on housing, but the land is still, that's where we see reflected our values about water, about beauty, about agriculture and food, about fire and wildlife. Are we capturing water in the soil? Are we sequestering carbon by promoting fewer and bigger trees? Are we putting money in the bank that way? Will my grandkids see wildlife here, or will they just see miles of invasive flammable weeds? We need to all work on the land more proactively, both public and private land. Yes, for fire readiness, but also to achieve a host of other outcomes. And this will require new forms of governance and financing. We think that these needs are best articulated at the moment by the program called Taking Action for Living Systems. Third main point, our economy needs to adapt to a post-petroleum success. Right now, children and youth in Sonoma County largely see no place for themselves here because most jobs here don't cover the rent or the mortgage. Right now, our major industries are highly vulnerable to climate hazards. Right now, our planet needs social and technological innovation. So in Sonoma County, we need to diversify our economy so that it includes more living wage jobs that can provide pathways out of poverty, that create a better future, and get our county into more disaster resilient industries. And such shifts require government action. We want to highlight, just in closing, the possibilities at Eldridge, or the former Sonoma Developmental Center. 900 acres of state-owned land near Glen Ellen, whose future is now being planned. That future could include 700 acres of gorgeous protected open space, plus a hub of climate innovation employers, plus affordable housing, plus community services, could create a globally significant example of a future-oriented, integrated community that has good jobs, good housing, and climate innovation. Thank you.
Caitlin, thank you. And we have a few minutes to hear some final remarks from the participants out there. Sarah, what are you seeing?
You know, Caitlin, if you could post in the chat to the attendees a copy of that report or a link to the report you mentioned. We have a few requests for that. Thank you.
That's great.
Let's see here from Stephanie Hiller. Here, Caitlin, a good holistic vision. Yes, diversify our economy. From Carrie, we have thank you, Max, for naming the importance of uplifting the wisdom of our Indigenous leadership. Thank you, and making equitable jobs too. Thank you. Let's see. Lilith suggests that folks read Rachel Carlson's Silent Spring. It's a legendary piece. Stop the use of dangerous chemical fertilizers and pesticides. We have a lot still coming in here. Mark Newhauser's joined us and says another elephant in the room is real estate speculation. Eliminate exorbitant profiteering on real estate, and the threats to land conversion and exclusionary pricing will diminish. Thank you, Mark. And just a reminder, you can also see our climate change email in the chat. Please send us your thoughts and ideas, including your larger and longer comments, so we can read them and include them in our report.
Thank you. What we'll be doing is we'll be capturing all of these comments from the Q&A function, all of the emails, and all of the Facebook posts to be able to include in our report. So thank you all very much. And I'd like to turn it back to our supervisors. What did you think about the experience tonight?
Thank you so much, BJ. And I just want to start by saying thank you to the amazing team of staff that helped make this happen. Jane, Crystal, Yvonne, Terry, Lois, Maggie, thank you so much for helping this run seamlessly. And of course, BJ and your team. I saw a number of questions in the chat about what are those next steps? What are we going to do from here? And so first of all, I want to say that obviously this is the start of the conversation. And we have a long way to go. And I really appreciated the thoughts around accountability and metrics and criteria and making sure that we're actually being held accountable for implementing the ideas and actually driving down our carbon emissions here in Sonoma County. So immediate next step is May 11th at the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors meeting. And that's when we will be having a climate policy workshop where all of the feedback from this will be compiled and then brought to the Board of Supervisors so that we can provide direction to staff regarding which policies and programs that we want to be pursuing. So we look forward to hearing from you, and there are opportunities again to continue engagement. You can come to that meeting. You can also continue to email us at climate@sonoma-county.org. So thank you all so much for being part of this amazing panel and this amazing experience, but we can't pat ourselves on the back, right? This is just the step, and we've got to go ahead and start running. And I'd like to hand it over to my co-chair here, Susan Gorin, to finish us off and carry us home.
Thank you, Linda. Really appreciate your outlining of the next steps. Indeed, I was going to say that as well. It's, we know that we've heard from just about everybody, the sense of urgency that we have to feel, and we have to take it very personally to move this forward to the next steps. I serve on the Bay Conservation and Development Commission, and for the past 10 years, we've been projecting sea level rise, bay level rise, and the impacts that it will have on all of our communities along the coast, nationwide, as well as the San Francisco Bay Area. Often the impacts are felt disproportionately on those who absolutely are challenged economically to really absorb them. And I think that should drive all of our conversation. The comments by our great government partners and our incredible community-based organizations really pinpoint that there is no one solution. It's all of the above. And I think that it also points out that we can take actions large and small. Large in government, both at the Sonoma County level, state government, federal, international, and small. What we do in our personal lives, in our individual behaviors, in our quest for recycling and reduce, reuse, recycle, our choices about using public transit and bicycle transportation, and the gardens that we produce in our yard. The carbon sequestration we are actually doing individually in our gardens. It's been amazing and exhilarating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We know that I hope that you were inspired by some of the speakers here tonight. Let's not stop the conversation tonight. Let's keep it moving forward. And I am so thrilled to be able to work as one of our 5 supervisors on the action steps going forward. So join us on May 11th. Continue to send your comments to us. We need all of your help, all of your ideas, all of your inspiration in order to move us forward. Thank you. And I do want to thank BJ Bischoff and Sarah Steerch, Maggie Fleming, Lois Hopkins, and all of the incredible folks who've been minding Facebook, answering the emails. We will record all of that. And I am so excited about the program tonight and all of the energy of all of the partners going into it. So have a good night. And thank you so much for sharing a couple of fine hours with us this evening. Have a great spring weather.
Nice job, everyone. I appreciate those of you who gave back some time. There were a couple of you who gave back some time. Thank you so much. Very appreciative of that.
And to all of you,